Hey guys, it's Mitch. How's it going? Merry Fragmas! We're going to do this one right with a true Christmas classic. Screw It's a Wonderful Life. We're taking a look today at the Lobo Paramilitary Christmas Special. So just before we get into it, if you enjoy the channel, if you feel like you might want to help out a little bit, spread some of that season cheer or some shit like that, go over and subscribe to my Patreon. Gives you early access to everything I do, from the Blood Force stuff to the YouTube videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, as well as some Patreon exclusive content. So this feels like kind of a classic now in this genre. You can't, it's like certain people love Die Hard as their ultimate Christmas movie. My kids included. This is a lot of people's Christmas comic, including me. I'm sure there's some heartfelt Superman tale out there somewhere about him getting Batman some really comfy socks. But personally, I'm far more interested in some Christmas ultra-violence. And this one goes back a bit for me. This is one of the ones I got before I really got into collecting comics, and it's one of the reasons I got into collecting comics. Went over to a buddy's place for when I was like 10 or 11 for a sleepover. And, you watch like movies that are too violent for, what you should be watching. And it turned out he had some comics that I had no idea were being made. Some of those were the early Spider-Man comics by Todd McFarlane, the Torment series, where I had never seen Spider-Man in a comic that looked like that. That seemed crazy to me. And the other one I remember is the Lobo Paramilitary Christmas Special, where it's unbelievably gory. This is the tale of Lobo being hired by the Easter Bunny to whack Santa Claus. And he's going to do it as messily as possible. I remember seeing this and being like, Jesus, I didn't think comics could do this. And then I went out and I just bought comics off the rack for the next couple of years because I didn't know where to find a comic shop. But eventually I got back around to, getting stuff that wasn't exactly heartwarming. So we can get into this. On the cover, it does warn us, contains bad taste in the form of ultra-violence, icon bashing, and the finger, in quotes. More offensive than Christmas usually is. I do like the implication that Christmas already has an inherent amount of offensiveness. And I mean, we can see right from the cover here, this is going to be good because this is going to be drawn by Simon Bisley. And, not painted, unfortunately, because that's where you get Bisley just pouring his heart into it. But this is still like a pretty high amount of effort from Simon Bisley for some pencils and inks. It's been noted that Simon Bisley doesn't give much of a shit if he's not painting, but I think he's interested in this one. I think he has a particular fondness for Lobo. And of course, as with all of the early Lobo stories, this is going to be plotted and breakdowns by Keith Giffen, and scripted dialogue by Alan Grant. So this is just really the correct version of Lobo. Simple cover, but iconic now, with Lobo standing over the prone Santa with his big bloody friggin' knife. I'm not entirely sure why anybody picked the word paramilitary. That sounds like a Keith Giffen thing. Maybe making some Punisher commentary or something. Because, of course, Lobo isn't supposed to be popular as far as Keith Giffen's concerned. He doesn't like the character. He's meant to be a critique on where comics is going wrong. And unfortunately, the critique got popular. Well, unfortunately for him anyway. Fortunate for the rest of us. Another one of those ads for the Constitution. The more you know. All right, now let's get into this story about an alien slaughtering Santa. All right, so we're going to start off on an alien world, although alien world is in quotes. This is some cartoon, not a world, where Keith and Alan and Simon just came up with some ridiculous characters to kind of bookend this particular story with. So this is on an alien world, night before Christmas. We're going to start with a nice big opening splash. These are our alien domiciles. Looks a little Whoville. And I mean, you can see Bisley throwing in some effort on these rocks. Or, I don't know, maybe this is the kind of thing he can just dash off. But, I like the amount of spritz going on around here. Putting some textures on these mountains, that's good stuff. And these weirdly shaped houses that are perched on the edge. It's like every house has to be perched on the edge of a cliff. That's how you make houses, didn't you know? So we're in a particular couple's house. These are just detestable creatures. I'm not sure if they're meant to be American or British. I think it could swing either way. And the guy here is getting chewed out by his wife because he managed to get himself fired like a week before Christmas for rigging dump breaks. I'm not even 100% sure what that means, but the guy assures us man's got a dump. And now, it seems, they don't have any presents for Christmas for the children. And they're in fear for their lives. Guy here talks about he keeps seeing the Gearsons after their brew got done with them. You could have fit Joe in a matchbox. So what he's going to do is he's going to go down to the pantry, I suppose, the family arsenal, and he's going to load up, and he's going to hit them before they can hit him. Them, of course, being his children. So we're setting the right tone early. We've got our standard 6-panel grids here. Like I said, Keith Giffen does the breakdowns on this. Keith Giffen loves a 6-panel grid. He will, break his habits from time to time, or maybe just on the action pages, he lets Simon Bisley do whatever he wants. That could also be the case. It would be a smart idea, too. And we got these crazy characters that Simon Bisley's just going to go to town on, super cartoony, super over-rendered cartoony, which is fun, and going with the ultra-dramatic lighting for when he loads up his, whatever this gun is meant to be. Looks like a sniper rifle of some kind. So his wife advises him to put it on automatic. They don't want any vengeance-crazed survivors coming back next year. And he's about to launch his sneak attack when there's a thump behind them outside of the front door. He's like, oh my God, you don't think they overheard? They could be trying to outflank us. So he posts up beside the door, just answer it. I'll cover you. And she checks it out. Turns out there is a book that's been left on the doorstep. And they're going to take it inside, and they're going to look it over. They're like, it could be a booby trap of some kind. What planet is this, anyway? You just assume the worst at all times, because apparently the worst just always happens. So eventually they decide, you know what? We're about to get torn apart by our kids anyway. We might as well see if this has some kind of answers. And yeah, these characters are friggin' nuts. It's like a cross between Terry Gilliam and David Lynch characters. Simon Bisley just kind of seeing what he can get away with in every panel, and just nobody's going to correct him, because you're Simon Bisley. Regardless that doesn't mean a whole lot, I suppose, in the States at this point. Means a bunch to the UK, though. So now is when we're going to get our opening credits. No job, no money, no prospects, no Christmas. Each year, thousands of parents die in incidents of domestic violence perpetrated by their very own and very irate children. Yes, that's right, ordinary kids, who, realizing they will enjoy no Christmas, turn on their folks with a homicidal mania of unprecedented proportions. What can you do to prevent your death? Fortunately, the answer is simple. Merely read this book to your children. The Lobo Xmas Sanction, or 'Tis the Season to be Jolly, rat-a-tat-a-tat, a-tat-tat-tat. Whoa, you say, what difference can one poxy little book make? To which we say, read it to 'em and see. Backed by our cast iron guarantee. If your kids still want a Christmas after the reading, we will pick up all burial expenses up to but not exceeding 3,500 credits. What other publisher dares put his money where his mouth is? Try it. You've nothing to lose but your terror. A public service brought to you by Keith Giffen, Plot and Breakdowns, Simon Bisley Art, Alan Grant Dialogue, Lovren Kanzierski Colors, Gaspar? Letters, I suppose, and Dan Raspler, the editor. Let's hear it for Dan for getting this one through. So they figure they might as well check it out, because they don't have anything to lose, and we've still got a page or two to burn, apparently. This whole prologue goes on for like 8 pages. It doesn't feel like that was necessary, but why not? And we're going to open up with a huge splash page of the main man himself. This, of course, is Lobo. Lobo has come a fair ways since his first appearance back in the Omega Men. I would say he's come a fair ways since Lobo #1, really, where he was still kind of just more of a scumbag. These days, he's more of a metalhead, like rock star biker. I think I tried to take a shot at sketching him recently, and it only started working when I realized that, oh shit, he's Space Lemmy. But yeah, awesome splash, ridiculous looking. Got all of his Frank Frazetta musculature going on. Not exactly doing a ton with the background on this, but I mean, he threw in like everything on the figure here. I'm okay with it. And of course, Lobo is accompanied by his dog that he does not recognize as his. It just seems to follow him around everywhere. So Lobo is in a drinking establishment. He approaches the bar, and naturally what he's going to do is intimidate the bartender for no particular reason. He's supposed to meet somebody here, and just the accepted way for Lobo to announce his presence is to beat somebody's face in. Really fun shot. Love how involved Simon Bisley gets in just all the musculature, the forearm muscles, all the obliques and everything. It's great looking stuff. And then the hair, it's just all scribbles. But that's like the iconic version of Lobo is the scribble hair. I feel like people have tried to draw him with like real hair, and it just never works. So the guy that Lobo is supposed to meet is sitting off in the corner. Lobo's going to go check it out. And it's this cartoon rabbit that is getting just blitzed. One of the things about Simon Bisley I love, like, you know, whenever you think of Simon Bisley, I think the first thing probably comes to your mind is things like this, where he's doing insane musculature and like just over-the-top visuals. But it might not be the first thing to think of that he's got a really good hand at cartooning. Like, he loves dropping little, like, animated characters all over the place in a comic book. So the drunk rabbit is, he's a little reticent to just get right into why he's there, but that's not good enough for Lobo. Lobo doesn't have patience for that kind of shit. Says, wait a minute, don't I know you from somewhere? You're not in Legion, are you? And I get another shot of Lobo that feels kind of iconic. It just feels like any shot of Lobo in this comic is iconic. I think most of what everybody likes about Lobo is from this specific comic book. And so that's when the bunny reveals, yes, I'm the Easter Bunny. You caught me in a trap one time. And Lobo's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Good times. And we're going to get down to why the bunny has tried to hire Lobo. He's going to try and put a hit out on Santa. Basically, him and all of the other, any kind of holiday mascot that isn't Christmas, they've all banded together in on this because Christmas has taken all the wind out of everybody else's sails. Nobody can compete with the marketing power of Christmas. And Lobo's just like, sure, I never did like Christmas. I never got anything I asked for. And after a little bit more needless intimidation, Lobo agrees, all right, sure, the fat boy's scragged. Make sure you get me my money and there'll be no problems. Steps outside to his awesome motorcycle, his space motorcycle. I wonder where Biz is even finding this stuff to, like, just get ideas from in 1991. Because it looks kind of manga-y in a lot of respects, like just some of the tech in there. But I think in 91, manga would have just been on the rise. So I don't know if that's what it was. Like, if he's just coming up with that, that's some pretty great looking stuff. We get our nice moody shot of the space dolphins, which I'll confess, I don't really know what that is. I feel like I haven't read the Lobo comics where that gets even remotely referred to. I know space dolphins and Lobo are a thing. I don't know why. That's like the one thing he cares about, I think. And we get a nice Sam Raimi montage of getting ready to take down Santa. That's some good stuff. That's just a lot of fun. That must have been fun to draw. So from there, we're going to cut to the North Pole in Santa's Fortress, which is, it's just like this big compound. Well, like half warehouse, half factory. It seems a bit more like a survivalist compound than, some magical land where the elves all live. Lobo creeps up on it from a distance, kind of does a little bit of recon, sees that there's only the two guards at the gate because he figures Santa probably thinks nobody would dare to come in and try and take him out. So snipes them from a distance first, just turns them into bloodstains, essentially. And if you think that's violent, I would suggest shutting off the video now. So, okay, the opening salvo has been made, gets the fences, they've been electrified, because, he's not completely unparanoid, if that's a term, but he's going to blow that up with some dynamite in nice little photocopied panel, so that'll give Simon Bisley a minute off anyway, and Lobo goes running through the opening, just like, company! And inside the compound, sirens start going off, and we get our shot of the elves working the production line. They're piling up the toys in time for Christmas here. And again, just an opportunity for Simon Bisley to draw some goofy shit. He's not going too hard on this, though. A lot of this is just like an outline, and a pretty sloppy one at that. He's having some fun with, these two elves in front. These ones he didn't bother with too much. So some stuff here he's enjoying himself. Some stuff he's just like, no, I gotta get to more like just killing. So word comes down that it's an intruder in the compound. Like, what is it, a stray reindeer? It was like, what, with a bomb? I told that fat fool we needed a security beef up. And they're going to get a visual on who the intruder is, and we get our awesome shot here of Lobo. And the one guy goes, order a total mobilization. The naughtiest one has come. Fun stuff. I wonder if Keith Giffen is still breaking these down. Like this one here I can see. This looks like a Keith Giffen kind of layout here. This one here with like all the really small horizontal panels doesn't seem as likely, but maybe. He definitely can get creative with it from time to time. Lobo's walking through the compound. He's like, how come I haven't met any resistance yet? And of course, that's when all the elves surround him and take aim on him. And the head elf goes, you are surrounded, naughtiest one. And every elf a crack shot. Tell him to surrender now and maybe they'll have some mercy on him. And naturally, Lobo doesn't surrender because why would he? Lobo is completely invulnerable. I do recall reading that Lobo can regrow himself from a drop of his blood. So, I mean, yeah, sure, blow me away, and then I'll be right back, and then you eventually run out of ammo. Fun little angry elf shit. So, the head elf gives the order to fire, and naturally they're all pop guns. It's, they're Christmas elves. And we get a moment of quiet before the storm. before Lobo responds. And respond he does by just opening fire on everything. And now is when the ultraviolence is really going to kick in. Again, awesome shot that could have been used as an ad or a poster if they wanted to do that. And this is the stuff that really kind of blew me away when I was reading it as a kid. Just like, oh my God, can you do this in a comic? Just blood flying all over the place. Eyeballs flying out. You got to have flying eyeballs if you're going to do some dismemberment. Brains flying out. It's unbelievably gross. And of course, Simon Bisley is going to do a little bit more detail on this stuff than he was doing on, say, the Elf production line. Because this is the fun stuff, right? Yes, it is. And Lobo's having a great time. There's no better time to be had than dismembering elves. So he's going to sing himself a little Christmas song where Santa Bo is coming to town. And that, like this one here took a little bit of time. The dismembered elf. You're just going out of his way to just make it as gross as possible. All the organs spilling out everywhere. I wonder if this will get this video flagged. It might. And Bisley's going just ham on these. These are the pages he wants to draw. So, like get a Dutch angle thing, all sorts of movement going on with Lobo's pose. Get all the shell casings spitting out of the guns at like an accelerated speed, like he's warping them. That's nice stuff. Even the letterer gets to have a little fun with some of the sound effects, like snacka snacka, and frag, and frag again. Lobo's mutt gets to get in on the process, hunting down elves and just tearing them apart, biting the heads off, all that shit. It's just gross and over the top, which is the whole point of the comic. He also sings along with the Santa Bo song, which I don't know if the dog showed up much in Lobo's back. I feel like he didn't. I know at one point he gets killed, but I don't recall the dog being able to talk. So that must have just been stuff I missed. But again, having fun with the cartooning aspect, just like, putting on a bit of extra detail on the mutt when he gets to draw him, also putting in a fart there. I don't know if we needed that, but all right, why not? Keith Giffen doesn't like this character anyway. He can have a farting dog. And Lobo eventually walks away at a big old splash page from the giant pile of elf corpses, which again, Simon Bisley took a bit of time on. You think of that assembly line page where he just put some detail in the very front and then everything else was like very, very loose outlines. He's putting a little bit of detail, like even up to the top here. Like these hands here, it's not exactly like he really worked like from reference or anything, but like he's trying to make it look like a hand at least. And I don't think he would have done that on the previous page there. Okay, so now we're getting down to it. That was all of the elves dispensed, because of course they all got fully mobilized. So once Lobo walks through that, not really any kind of defense, other than like a meat shield. Now he's just going to go looking through the fortress for Santa. And he's got some choice words for Santa's decor. He's not a big fan of the guy's style. Again, another big shot of Lobo here, standing among some pretty loose casings, but he did draw a whole bunch of casings, so that's okay. Also walking through, this like unnecessarily like glamorous home, I suppose, with all like the statues and all the royal furnishings and that kind of shit, which Lobo has no time for naturally. And Santa is awaiting him with his gorilla manservant, I think. The gorilla I have seen before. I think he did show up in Lobo's back. In this case, he's Santa's roommate, apparently. But yeah, big splash page of Kris Kringle smoking a stogie. This would have, I feel like, been one of the earliest. Well, like, not the earliest. I'm sure Santa parodies have been going on forever. But this is one of the more notable early Bad Santas, I think. I suppose if you're a comic fan, thinking about it, I'm sure there's all sorts of examples that probably came up before this. But, well, this is the one that sticks out for me. Let me put it that way. So Lobo's just going to walk in. He's like, okay, Easter Bunny put a price on your head. It's time to collect. And it's like, well, that seems hardly fair. Just going to snipe me from a distance like a coward? Don't even have the stones to take me on man to man? Like Lobo, any kind of questioning of his masculinity, he's got to defend immediately. So Santa's going to guide them to a place where they can maneuver without any worry about, tripping over anything. And he's going to get his weapon of choice, which in this case is a pair of shivs. Apparently, Santa is well-versed in shivs. And we got another awesome shot of Lobo here. They're like, super shadowed with the, it's like a kukri knife, but I like the decision to put him on a diagonal. Even though you could have done this as just a straight up and down, but it doesn't have the same kind of gravitas. It's pretty sick. If that was a Keith Giffen idea, that was a damn good one. And they're going to, of course, start hacking and slashing at each other immediately. And it gets to a point pretty quickly where they're both bleeding from multiple wounds. Lobo punches Santa's eye out. Santa yells, "Die, you naughty bastard." All gross as fuck. Nice bits of splatter going all over the place here with the ink. And yeah, so Lobo gets a few more hits in. Santa tries to make a deal with his eyeball hanging out of his face. And we get down to Lobo's one rule, which is that if he gives his word, Lobo sticks to it. And the bunny's already paid, so Lobo has to go in and behead Santa. And every penguin cheers. Free of the tyrant at last. 3 cheers for the main man. And we get another big splash page. There's a few splashes in this comic. Just an awesome shot, like a sum-up shot of Lobo versus Santa. With Santa's headless corpse, Lobo covered in blood with his big knife. Could have been a poster, could have been a sketch that Simon Bisley came up with when they first said, what if we drew Lobo versus Santa? Because, you know, there's a fair bit of detail going on the figures. Nothing in the background whatsoever, which again makes it feel a bit more sketchy. But another iconic shot. And we get another just damn good shot of Lobo standing over Santa's corpse. And everything's heavily shadowed. It's really great looking. Spritzes of ink for no particular reason, really. Says he can't blame the old goat for trying, though. This is some sweet deal he's laid out here. Only got to work 1 day a year. All the elves you can handle if you're into little guys with pointy ears. And we get a quick cut to a closet somewhere full of, like, BDSM gear. It's like, oh, it was just him and the elves. Mrs. Claus was probably just one elf standing on another elf's shoulders in a dress. But yeah, now the compound has been completely cleared. So Lobo's going to do a bit of a tour and see what he can do with everything that Santa had at his disposal, which is quite a bit. And he's kind of followed through by Kong. He let Kong live. No reason to kill him. And all the penguins, who are now like Lobo's gang. Or they really want to be Lobo's gang anyway. I feel like those penguins would keep showing up later, too. Maybe it was just that Lobo's back came out like the next thing after this. That might have been the case. Because a few elements from this particular issue carried over into that, from what I remember. So Lobo gets his hands on the list, which is nice, or as Lobo identifies them, future victims, and naughty, which Lobo identifies as possible competition. So it's like, okay, how do I put all of this information to good use now? So they're going to go back to the factory, and they're going to start manufacturing bombs. In another splash page, like so many splashes in this. This is great. That I don't think Simon Bisley really wanted to draw too much of. Like, the chair and Lobo, and maybe the monkey, yes. Everything else, no, that's all pretty sketchy. I don't think he's very interested in that. I do like the aspect with the conveyor belts going just on for eternity with no attempt at trying to make it look like there's any kind of perspective or anything. It's not even like Looney Tunes perspective. It's just fill up the white space with more conveyor belts. And eventually they're going to get this giant pile of warheads. And Lobo says, 1 frag of a lot of brats are in for 1 frag of a heavy-duty Xmas. And all the penguins are very happy with the choices they've made in their lives. So now they just got to arrange transport. Lobo's going to head off to the stables and see about getting them to pull the sleigh. Naturally, he talks to Rudolph first. Goes, Rudolph, lead my sleigh tonight, or I'll blow you away. And Rudolph goes, no, never, you're naughty, much too naughty. And we get the blam sound effect. And next thing you know, the sleigh is all loaded up and the reindeer are all ready. In yet another splash page. Like, this is starting to feel like 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, where it's just like it was designed around these splashes or something. Maybe, because like there's a lot of like key moments that just come down to the splashes. So, yeah, Lobo hops onto the sleigh, indicates they can go by shooting up into the air, and they take off, and Lobo just flies over the world, dropping bombs over all of the houses where I guess everybody lives. The naughty learn just what happens to those who threaten the main man's peace of mind, and the nice, well, let's just say they learn young what it means to be innocent victims. And yeah, just like, you know, bombing everybody. Why not, I suppose? It's a great looking splash page. That is a ton of fun. And that's it for Lobo's Christmas adventure. So the parents from the beginning go, oh shit, that's absolutely going to work. They won't want anything to do with Christmas after reading this story. And they flip ahead to the last page to see if it gets even better, to find out that this book is good for only 1 read. And with that, it vanishes from their grasp. And the dad's like, oh well, I'll say goodnight to the kids for you. And he picks up his shotgun again. And then we just get blam, blam, blam to Silent Night and our parting shot of Lobo saying, Merry Xmas, compadres, ho, ho, frag, and ho. And again, like one of the most iconic shots of Lobo, probably, flipping the bird for everybody. That's just spectacular stuff. Hey, last Boy Scout, that seems appropriate somehow. All right, so that is the Lobo Paramilitary Christmas Special. That's just like one of my favorite comics. It helps a lot that it's not referencing too much directly, because like these days, if he did something that was anything like this, it would be referencing this. I'm not going to go so far as to say this like broke the mold or anything, but it was like a singular kind of thing where you had to be like, dude, have you read this comic? Do you have any idea how fucked up this comic gets? And the funny thing is, like looking back through it, it's like I remember it as being 48 pages of bloodshed. And it really isn't. It's like 6. But it's all over the top crazy shit. And in 1991, when you're not used to like gore at all in comics, I mean, you know, like if you're not reading all that stuff that shows up in the comic stores, you're just reading off the newsstand. And you stop by your buddy's place and he produces this fucking crazy comic book. Like this is formative shit for, I think, a lot of people. And it should be. It's kind of spectacular. Incidentally, I've never owned this comic until I ordered it like a couple of months ago. It's one of those things where it's just like, yeah, no, I'm just like remembering it fondly. And I don't need to own a copy. It's like, well, no, I need to own a copy so that I can like share it with all of you. And this way you don't have to break out your own copy. You can just go through it page by page with me. Or maybe there's the odd person who hasn't actually heard of this. In which case, order a goddamn copy. This is the only Christmas comic you will ever need. Simon Bisley isn't exactly firing on all cylinders through all of it, but even on the pages where he's not as into it, there's still a ton of energy. And the jokes are all crass and lowbrow. It's the perfect Lobo story. You're just not going to beat this, ever. And I gotta say, considering that it's well known now that Keith Giffen did not like the character of Lobo, it's funny just how well he built him up. Like, it's like the RoboCop effect. Like, Paul Verhoeven thought American action movies were dumb as hell and decided to do a satire of them, inadvertently making the greatest American action movie. Keith Giffen's got this character where I think it probably seemed like a fun idea at the beginning, just this absolutely amoral, indefensible asshole who's unkillable, and, just put him in a couple of fun situations and then inadvertently built like a mythos around him that was ideal for the 90s. He's the last member of his race because he killed them all. He's killed Santa, and in Lobo's back, he's going to get killed himself, get kicked out of heaven, get kicked out of hell. And these are actually all cool elements of the character where, like, if you're talking about Lobo to your buddy who also reads comics and isn't maybe familiar with that particular guy, it's like, yeah, no, he did this, bullshit. And you pull out the comics, like, oh my God, he actually did all that stuff. And not only that, but it's all drawn by Simon Bisley, and it looks awesome. So kind of created his own nemesis on that one, I guess. So anyway, that's going to do it for this one. I meant to do this last year. I don't remember oh, right, that's right. I did What If number 7, the Rob Liefeld What If instead, because like it struck me like a day or two before Christmas, like, oh shit, why am I not doing the Paramilitary Christmas Special? So by that time, it was too late to order a copy, but made up for it this year. I have no idea what we're going to do on Christmas next year. There's got to be something equally inappropriate. But for this one anyway, that's going to do it. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications so you know when the next one's coming out. Go over and subscribe to my Patreon. Gives you early access to everything I do, from the Blood Force stuff to the YouTube videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, as well as some Patreon exclusive content. You can also follow me on Instagram and DM me there for commissions, and you can join the Blood Force Discord server. But yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks again for watching, guys. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever the fuck. Just have a good time and be safe, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.